Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, welcome back. Ooh, you're all right. Welcome back. It's Wednesday, January 28th. Still trying to dig out from some of that snow and some of that wind. We had a little bit of a reprieve, but holy mackerel, the back end of this week is going to get nasty again as we muddle through this winter and muddle through this January. McGraw Milhaven here tonight on the show. Looking forward to it because not a music guy, really. Found talk radio in about 8th grade and never really went back. However, tonight we are going to talk to a gentleman who has written a book about my band, R.E.M. Yes, the name of the book is R.E.M. The name of the book is R.E.M. That came out last year, but he has a new release about a biography on Bruce Springsteen called Tonight in Jungleland, The Making of Born to Run. So we'll get into that with Peter Ames Carlin in hour number 2. So we're looking forward very much to talk a little R.E.M., even though I've never seen them in person, and they stopped touring. So one of the great tragedies of my life, not being able to see R.E.M. But we'll talk about that next hour. This hour, a little bit later on in the show, we're going to talk to somebody who is very much against data centers. Data centers are either they're the new boogeyman or they're going to solve all of our world's problems. And there's a number of communities throughout the country that are getting ready to build massive data centers. And there are many communities across the country that are getting ready to put their foot down and go all Minneapolis protest on data centers in their communities. Not just liberals, conservatives, independents, rural, urban, suburbia, all of them are lining up against data centers for all sorts of reasons. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on in this hour. This first hour, the first half of the first hour, we're going to talk guns. And we're going to talk to the national spokesman for the Gun Owners of America. One of the interesting things about this Minnesota shooting from last weekend was that Alex Pretti had a gun and he had some extra ammunition. And it seems like down is up and up is down. For years, I was a big gun supporter and believed in the Second Amendment and believed that you had a right to carry a gun. And if you did it legally and lawfully, knock yourself out. And I was called every conservative name in the book, you gun-toting wacko, you right-wing zealot, you baby killer, whatever else crazy thing they called me. And then I defended Alex Pretti's right to have a gun, excuse me, and I was called a liberal, I was called a liberal crazy or right-wing wacko, and it was like, wait a minute, I haven't changed my position at all. That the guy has a right to carry a gun, and all of a sudden I went from a conservative wacko to a liberal-leaning lefty. So it was very confusing. So we're going to talk to the spokesman for the Gun Owners of America, who are all in for the Second Amendment. So that's coming up here straight ahead. First, let me tell you about these statements and products that have not been evaluated by the FDA, and these products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. Of course, I'm talking about Active Liver from New Nordic. If you're like me, the holidays were a little tough. The cookies, the food, the sweets, and yeah, every once in a while, maybe a delicious Jameson or two. That can take a toll on your liver. And if you've made the resolution like me for 2026 to get off to a healthier start, why not start by taking Active Liver from New Nordic? Active Liver is available in easy-to-take tablets or delicious gummies, and it's an important part of the daily wellness routine to keep the body detoxed and feeling its best. Since I started using Active Liver from New Nordic, I've noticed less digestion issues, better energy, and I feel healthier and less worn down. Active Liver from New Nordic is simple, delicious daily detox, and it's available at Amazon NewNordicUSA.com. You can pick up some today at your local CVS, ShopRite, Meijer Grocery, and now Active Liver is available at Wegmans. New year, new you, new Nordic.
From the heart of America, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Part of this national conversation, Alex Pretti, the man who was shot and killed in the streets over the weekend in Minneapolis, was carrying a gun legally, lawfully. He was a concealed carry advocate, obviously, carrying a gun, and he was carrying some extra ammunition and was criticized, not by the left, but by the right. A very odd time and a very odd angle to this story. We wanted to get to the bottom of it, and we asked Luis Valdes, who is the national spokesman for an organization called Gun Owners of America. Luis, welcome, and thanks for joining us on America at Night.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on.
So one of the things I find most interesting about the gun lobby and organizations is two things. Is one, I think, very misunderstood. You guys... a lot of what you do is about gun safety and gun education and teaching people the proper way, the correct way, safety storage, and all those things. And the other thing is lobbying for the rights of gun owners. And talk for a moment about that, because I have found over the years that if you truly watched what the gun lobby does, you advocate for Second Amendment rights for everybody, whether you're a liberal, conservative, senior citizen. Speak to that for a moment, because I feel at this moment the gun lobby and this Alex Pretti has sort of been caught up in this political game, and him being a gun owner is being criticized by the very people who support gun rights.
Well, Gun Owners of America, our stance is very simple. We're a no-compromise gun rights organization. We've been doing this for 50 years. Partisan. And when I say nonpartisan, we don't care if it's Republican, if it's Democrat, that is pro-gun or anti-gun. The party affiliation isn't the issue. The only affiliation we care is where they stand on the Constitution. If they're pro-gun, we thank them. And if they're anti-gun, we basically spank them. I mean, that's what it comes down to. This is about freedom. This isn't the left versus right issue. This isn't the Democrat versus Republican issue. This isn't, we don't carry water for politicians. We don't carry water for political parties. This is about liberty versus authoritarianism. We, the people, have the right to keep and bear arms. We, the people, have the right to speak freely and exercise those rights jointly. The idea of protesting while armed goes all the way back to the founding of this country, even before the founding of this country, because remember, it was the Patriots who did the Boston Tea Party and other such events where they raised their voices in grievance against the crown, and they did it while armed. Now, us at GOA, we fully believe in the ability to protest while armed. I myself has done it, as have our members. But the key factor there is we do it peacefully.
One of the things, Luis, that is being criticized is they're sort of splitting the debate. They're saying, the gun's fine, but he had 2 magazines, and he had all this ammunition, and what was his intentions, and therefore he should be criticized or vilified, or clearly he was a bad guy because he had extra ammunition. How do you see that side of the story?
Well, we don't know what his intentions are because he can't tell us what his intentions are. Blaming the item is the classic anti-gun trope. Look, I generally carry a SIG P220 or a Glock 17, and I usually have 1 or 2 mags as a backup, especially when I carry my SIG 220. It's usually 2 spare mags on me. And this goes back to my days as a cop. I always carried spare mags. I carried spare mags as a uniformed patrol officer. I carried spare mags as a plainclothes detective. I carry spare mags when I was off duty. I carry spare mags as a private citizen. And you know what? A lot of people that I know that carry firearms that were never in the military or law enforcement, they do the same thing. Why? Because, hey, guess what? Sometimes bad guys travel in packs.
Sometimes you just want to carry it, right? I mean, for no other reason than you just want to carry it, right? I mean, you don't need a reason to carry it, right?
It's the same reason of, you know what, maybe I want to drive the Corvette with the top down. Why? Because I'm an American and I can.
Are you shocked at the arguments or the people who are coming out against this guy for being a lawful gun owner?
You know, it's not shocking to see that happen. Our fight here in Florida, for example, Florida was the only Republican supermajority state that banned open carry. Now, that ban went back to 1987 when then Miami-Dade County State Attorney Janet Reno pushed for it, and it was Florida Republicans that were defending Janet Reno's open carry ban. And we had to take it to court, and we won successfully, and now Florida is an open carry state as of December of last year. But the thing is when you have politicians who campaign, oh, I'm pro this, oh, I'm pro that. Well, talk is cheap. Let's see the walk. And, you know, that's where we want to thank Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, for example. He did the talk, and now he's doing the walk. He stood up on the plate, and he said, no, Americans have the right to clearly carry a firearm and exercise free speech as they so wish in a respectful and law-abiding, peaceful manner. And we're going to do a just, independent investigation into what happened with Mr. Pretti. So we thank him for that.
Yeah. Let's talk about what the law is and isn't. And I don't know, you're in Florida. You're the national spokesman for the gun owners of America. I don't expect you to know the Minnesota law, but I wouldn't be shocked if you do. But concealed carry, generally speaking, you can carry the gun. Do you have to carry papers with you? Do you have to carry the registration? What do you have to carry with that concealed carry to make it legal?
So the state of Minnesota is not a constitutional carry state. You have to first get a permit to carry. Part of their statutes state that if you do not have your permit and ID on you, it is a petty misdemeanor, which results in a $25 non-criminal fine that is dropped when you go to court and show the judge, Your Honor, here's my driver's license or state-issued ID card. Here's my Minnesota-issued concealed carry weapons permit. Thank you. Have a nice day. It's not an arrestable offense. The gun doesn't get confiscated, none of that. But our stance is very simple. We believe you shouldn't even have government-issued papers to exercise an inalienable right because just think of it of, oh, you have to have your ID and your government-issued permit if you want to crack open your Bible or your Quran or your I can't remember the other one for Judaism, the Torah.
Right.
You know, if you want to study any of your religious texts, oh, well, you need a permit and you need your ID to do this. And if you don't, we're going to fine you. No, that's insane. Well, the right to self-defense is the same thing. This is an inalienable right that goes back before even the founding of the country. Because remember, the Constitution doesn't grant you rights. The Constitution simply enumerated rights because the founding fathers completely understood that, hey, these rights were inalienable. They existed long before the country did, and they're basic human rights. You have the right to defend yourself. You have the right to defend yourself not just from criminals on the street, from the possibility of tyrannical government. And if I want to give you a perfect example, my family fled that in 1961 from a little place called Cuba, where there was a guy named Fidel Castro who took over and instituted a communist dictatorship. And one of the first things he did was he said, "Admas por qué?" Why? I will protect you. The state will protect you. And yeah, how has that turned out?
Yeah. Well, there are also people now who want some people to be carrying around papers and to produce them on request, which is a whole other show. Luis Valdes with us, Gun Owners of America. In Minnesota, do you have to take a class? Do you have to have any type of training? Give me a sense of how simple it is or what are the steps to actually own the gun and to carry it.
Last I recall for Minnesota, they have some sort of training requirement. It's not egregious in the sense of what we're seeing in places like California or Illinois or New York, but it's your standard. You have to take some sort of proficiency class and show that you understand the basic concepts of the state law. And from there, they run a background check, you pay the fees, you do the fingerprint, the photograph, and they process you and you get your concealed carry permit. Now, our stance is very simple. Look, if all of these leftist lawmakers now, like Gavin Newsom, who previously wanted to repeal the Second Amendment, if now he is having a hallelujah moment where he sees the light, hey, how about Gavin Newsom and, Hochul out of New York and all of Pritzker out of Illinois, if they actually allow and push constitutional carry legislation in their states, if they really believe that everyone should be armed and everyone should be able to do it freely, then they should repeal their gun control laws, right? I mean, or like some on the right have been.
Yeah. Luis Valdes. Now, I mean, I think you misspoke there, did you? I have at a minute. The right to carry a gun. You don't want to force someone to carry a gun. If somebody doesn't want to carry a gun, that's fine, but they should have the right to carry the gun. Is that what you mean?
Correctamundo. It's an inalienable right, and people have the right to choose if they so want to. But in states like California, New York, and Illinois, people that want to do that, they are heavily restricted and their rights are infringed upon by government bureaucracy.
Luis Valdes, Gun Owners of America. What is your website for people to find out more about your wonderful organization?
Gunowners.org, and to join, it's just $25 a year, and every penny goes towards the fight, like our one big beautiful lawsuit challenging the National Firearms Act.
Luis Valdes, busy day for you. Thanks for spending a couple minutes with us. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
You got it. Luis Valdes, Gun Owners of America. Interesting take on the news of the day. Hey, here's what we're going to do. Stay right there, because next half hour, we're going to talk about data centers, because data centers are a major, major controversy. Hey, I also got the text line up and running. We got some texts. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We'll get to some texts as well. Stay right there. America at Night. Back in a moment.
This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, thanks for joining us. The text line's open, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Let's talk data centers, because if you haven't heard about the controversy about data centers, you're going to, because Virginia leads the country in data centers. 663 operational, more than 600 are under construction or planned. Pennsylvania, Virginia, Texas, California, Arizona, Florida, you name it, everyone's talking about building data centers. How much money are they talking about investing? $560 billion. They are talking massive, massive investments. And our next guest, Elena Schlossberg, is the executive director of the Coalition to Protect Prince William County. Elena, you are very much against data centers. Thanks for joining us on America at Night.
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm not so sure I would describe myself as against data centers. I'm against the resources that they demand. I'm against the impacts they're having on our electricity bills, on our clean water, on our quality of life, on our quality of water, and what it's doing to communities in general. Okay,
let's start there. So, what are they doing, in your opinion? We know we have quite a bit of existing data because we have data centers throughout the country, but they're sort of growing exponentially here. Some have opened up, some are planned. Everyone's talking about it. What are we seeing, Elena, in terms of the data, and what do you see as the problem of the existing ones and the ones that are getting bigger?
So you have to understand that the impetus for the creation of the Coalition to Protect Prince William County was a secretive Amazon Web Services campus that triggered a transmission line. And from that application, what we discovered was this industry was demanding power never known to mankind before. And not only were they triggering these massive transmission lines, but we also uncovered that we as ratepayers were paying for these extension cords. And what we didn't know at the time, this was back in 2014, was that every single data center campus, depending on how much power they need, will have dozens, if not hundreds, of diesel generators. And so what's happening now is people are seeing their communities industrialized. And what I mean by that, it's not just a big building. That massive building that could be 1 million, 2 million, or in the case of a project not far from me, 23 million square feet of data centers, requires as much energy as entire cities, some entire countries, and we don't have enough power, we don't have enough land, and so we are competing for the resources we need as communities with the data centers themselves.
Okay, so inside a data center, a lot of people don't know what a data center actually does, but from my understanding is, as you say, 1 million, 2 million, however, these things are now becoming monstrosities. They're filled with computers, not people, but just computers computing and spitting out data and generating algorithms all
Correct.
day long, correct?
So the way you can think about it is there are racks of servers, and there are cloud data centers, and then there are AI data centers. And the cloud data centers are more passive. They just hold your information. But the AI data centers, the reason why they need so much more energy and electricity is because they're always thinking. And so in these buildings, which do not require a lot of people because they're all computers, are these just massive racks and racks and racks of servers. Whether they're cloud servers or whether they're AI servers, they require the amount of electricity that it's hard to comprehend. For instance, down the road from me, about 5 miles, are 2 data center campuses. One is on 100 acres and the other campus is on 50 acres. Those 2 campuses combined on 150 acres require almost 1,000 megawatts of power. Now, what does that mean? Well, one nuclear reactor generates about 1,000 megawatts of power. So what we're talking about is on that intersection, technically, we could use a nuclear reactor because that's the amount of power that they need.
Elena, what's the problem with the water? Why do so many people against data centers have a problem with the water cooling the data centers?
So this is really interesting because when we first got involved in understanding the resources that data centers would need, water was almost impossible to get to, but we knew that new water lines were being built to data center campuses. So there's the quantity of water that they need, which, by the way, they are not forced to disclose. We have to try to get our hands on what that water consumption actually is. But that's how they cool. They cool by either evaporative cooling, where you see it come out of the top of the buildings, or they cool with closed loop. But either way, they are using enormous amounts of water. But the other problem that nobody talks about is, and I'll give you the example of this application that really was the impetus for this backlash against data centers, called the Digital Gateway. And that campus is proposed in the headwaters of a drinking water supply, next to the most important historical national park in a rural area. It's 23 million square feet of impervious surfaces. So what happens when you have that kind of land mass in an area where you need to have water recharge into the ground is that's not going to happen. And then you have all the runoff into the actual reservoir that is the supply, drinking water supply for 1 million people. So not only is it the quantity of the water, but then it becomes the quality of the water. And there was not one study done. So one of the things we were asking for in Virginia is simply show us the studies. Disclose how much power you need. Disclose how much water you need. Talk about when we are in periods of drought, who's getting the water? Is it the data centers or is it the community? For people who are on well water, are their wells going to run dry? What are the chemicals that are evaporating into the air and then being absorbed into the ground? There's so little information on an industry that is having so many impacts.
Elena, there have been some massive data centers that have opened up. One in Kansas City comes to mind, and I think Wisconsin has just made a big splash about massive data centers. They're going to use solar panels. They're going to reuse the water, right? They're going to be self-contained. They're going to be carbon neutral, if you will. Do you have a problem with those?
So the reality is that renewable energy, and I happen to have a ground-mounted solar panel because we want to save energy. We want to lower our electricity bills. We like to be more independent. I am not against solar. But the idea that you're going to create gigawatts, I'm talking tens of thousands of megawatts with solar, is simply not only unrealistic, it is impossible. And that is why the industry doesn't want solar. You need to create 1 megawatt of power, about 40 acres. So when I tell you that one campus alone has a load demand of 560 megawatts, how many hundreds and hundreds, thousands of acres are you going to need for that one campus? It's not realistic. It's also not baseload. You need power 24/7. Solar is not going to supply that, which is why if you look at what's happening in Virginia, what is happening in Virginia is what will happen everywhere, which is our grid is under stress. We are at risk of blackouts. And so what is happening here is it's about a 7-year wait now for these data centers to get hooked up to power. And so we are in this crisis of where are you going to build the new generation? And so we had a study done. And the study was pushed by the residents who kept going to our General Assembly and demanding some kind of oversight on this industry. And what the study proved was we would have to produce more wind and solar combined together in the next 2 years to meet even a portion of the load demand. And then, based on the amount of contracts, electrical contracts that have been signed by the data center industry and our monopoly utility, Dominion Energy, we would have to have a new gas plant every 15 months. But that load demand that this independent committee was working on called JLARC, that load demand was 23,000 megawatts in 2023. We are now at gigawatts. It was 23 gigawatts in 2023, and now we're at 50 gigawatts of signed electrical contracts. So when I just shared with you that one nuclear reactor produces about 1 gigawatt of power, are we suggesting that the state of Virginia build 50 new nuclear reactors just to meet the load demand of data centers? And who's going to pay for that?
Elena,
Well, the ratepayers are paying for that.
Let me ask you this. In today's world, liberals and conservatives can't agree on what day of the week it is. But it seems like that there is consensus between urban and rural and left and center and right. Tell me about the makeup of your organization. How do you, do you have liberals, conservatives? How does that break down when you talk to the politicians from either party? Talk to me about some of that side of this story.
You know, it doesn't matter when you're fighting for your home and your investment. I want to take a step back just for a moment. You brought up this $500 billion investment. That's just what it costs to build their business model. But all of us, you and me and my neighbors, we have our one investment. Our one investment is our home and our property. But nobody seems to be concerned about that investment. So I'm going to fast forward to you're asking, how is it possible that people with different political ideologies and different religions and different races can work together? Because their quality of life is at risk. Whether it's the data center across the street, that 24/7 noise that they make, whether it's the diesel generators that are turning on, the transmission lines, the substations, the industrialization of what they thought was this beautiful area that they lived in. That's what brings people together. And in many ways, I have joked that the data center industry may do the one thing that no politician has been able to do, and that is bring people together. And from the very beginning of this fight back in 2014, I partnered with the most conservative delegate in the state of Virginia, Bob Marshall. And on the House floor, somebody walked up to us and we were hugging, and they said, hell has frozen over because Bob and Elena are hugging. And you know what was great about that? What was great about that, it was genuine. So not only is this good politically, it's good for healing what is broken in America, because people have got to start peeling away their defenses and finding those things they have in common. And there's nothing more in common than fighting for your home, fighting for your community, fighting to stop your electricity bills. Why is it that the wealthiest industry in the world that is bragging about how much they're investing can't seem to cover their own transmission line infrastructure, their own generation infrastructure? And it's really important to remember, too, that these transmission lines that the federal government wants to fast track, they're taking other people's property. Your public utilities have the right to exercise eminent domain over your property. So not only are people living next to these, belching pollution, diesel generators and gas turbines and substations, but then they have to deal with the transmission lines taking their property that then they have to pay for.
Elena, real quick, because I'm short on time. I got about a minute left. In some of the conversations I've seen about these data centers, they're either preliminary, conversational. A lot of times they're private, right? They have to sign non-disclosure
NDAs.
forms. But I have yet to see anybody come forward with some type of government subsidy, tax rebate, TIF, transportation, something, sales tax, whatever. Have you heard of any of these data centers getting some type of government subsidy to get them built in a certain town and or state and or county?
Oh, well, let me tell you about the state of Virginia. The state of Virginia has given away almost $2 billion worth of tax credits, our revenue that we should be getting here in Virginia, to the data center industry. Oh,
so, yes.
They get their sweet deals all the time. They get what you'll hear a data center say when they talk about paying for their electricity. They'll say, we pay for our electricity. Okay. Actually, they get a bulk rate discount. They're actually not paying full price for their electricity. But do you get an electricity bill? Do you pay your electricity bill? I do. I pay
yes,
mine.
I do.
Okay.
Elena,
you don't get a trophy for paying for your electricity bill.
Elena Schlossberg, I got to go, Executive Director of the Coalition to Protect Prince William County. Do you guys have a website where people can go to find out more information?
Yes, protectpwc.org.
Protectpwc.org. pwc.org. Elena Schlossberg, thank you very much for your time. I love your passion. Keep your phone on. We reserve the right to call you back at any time. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Elena Schlossberg, Protect Prince William County. ProtectPWC.com. There you go. Simple as that. America at Night. Back in a moment.
From the heart of America, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
I'm telling you, these data centers are going to be a massive issue this election cycle, and then in 2028. I'm telling you, man, this is the amount of money these people are spending, these tech businesses, to build these data centers. People's energy bills are already skyrocketing, and then you're going to tell them, wait a minute, you're going to build a data center over here, and the energy bills are going to go up. And what is this data center going to do? Oh, it's going to create artificial intelligence, which is then going to take my job. How, if I lose my job, how am I going to pay my increase in my energy bill to fund your artificial intelligence, which in turn is firing everybody? I'm telling you, this is percolating, and this is going to be a big deal. So stay tuned for that. Liberals and conservatives are coming together, nothing like I've ever seen before. So stay tuned. Lots more to talk about that throughout the weeks and months. About these data centers that are popping up everywhere. Billions and billions of dollars being funneled in to build these data centers. Hey, the text line's open. Listen to this one. This one's from Nebraska. I believe it's Omaha. Listen to this. I'm requesting that you revive some of the bumper music from the Jim Bohannon show, the jazzy, catchy stuff. P.S. You're doing a really good job. So there you go. Thanks, Mom. It's not my mom. That's not my mom. My mom would be more apt to send me one of the angry texts like, who hired this joker? That would be more my mom, but that's a whole other issue. So you got that, Richard? A little more jazzy stuff. We got some jazzy stuff. We got the intros jazzy. We're doing some jazzy stuff as an ode to Jim. All right. That's going to do it for hour number one. Stay right there. Ames Carlin has written 2 books in the last 2 years. One on R.E.M. and the second one was on the album Born to Run. 2 books, must read, about some of the great bands of all time. R.E.M. and, of course, Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. We'll do that next hour, and then, of course, phone calls. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, welcome back. It's hour number 2, and I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. I graduated high school in 1985, which means I am smack dab right in the middle of a child of R.E.M. And Ames Carlin has written a book, is now out in paperback. It came out in 2024 called The Name of This Band is R.E.M. And then, as if he didn't do enough, last year came out with the Bruce Springsteen book, Tonight in Jungleland, The Making of Born to Run, in honor of that album and that song 50 years ago. That song, and that album came out. Holy mackerel. Peter, Ames, Carlin, welcome to America at Night, and thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm torn. I reserve the right to call you back to talk more about R.E.M. and Bruce Springsteen, because it's such a Bruce, it seems like, as he's gotten older, has been more apt to tell his tale, tell his story, be more open, be more honest. And I don't think you could have written this book 25 years ago. I think he had to be an old man to sort of look back and make sense of it all. Would you agree?
Yeah, I wrote his biography in 2012, the book that was just called Bruce. And that was a really, I started that with no, cooperation or access to those guys at all, and got like a year and a half into that process when, they reached out to me and kind of the word came back like, we may be ready to cooperate. And there was like a slow process of getting to know the other people in his orbit and sort of slowly move closer and closer. But then when Bruce came in, he was like all the way there. It's like he had really gotten to a point where he wanted to tell his story. And so he went into a lot of depth on the biography, which was amazing. And then when I got this idea to do the Born to Run book, he was like, yeah, sure, let's go for it. And, and he was very, very, very open about stuff this time. So he did, for those of us who were aware or following his story in the early years, he was pretty cagey about stuff. And there was a certain amount of, I think it's natural, you tend not to tell people your private stories. But eventually he kind of grew into it, and I got to a point where I think he realized it was sort of important to set that context.
Yeah, just like the movie that came out, they took a portion of his life. You can't do his whole songbook. You can't do it all. You just can't do it justice. So I love the fact that you take the album Born to Run, and that's what you're sort of focused on. So let's talk about that. Tonight in Jungleland, the making of Born to Run. Let's talk about the song Born to Run. Did it really just sort of come to him while he was lying in bed one night?
Well, I think, he had this experience of hanging around Asbury Park, and on Friday and Saturday nights, there's the Kingsley Street and Ocean Avenue loop that goes sort of by the beach. Was like, all the guys with hot cars and muscle cars would go and roam, and roar around there and cruise and race each other. And Bruce sort of just got swept up in the drama of watching it. And then I think he began to feel some kind of connection between who those guys were and what they were trying to do, and who he was and what he was trying to do with his music. And it just sort of slowly began to unfold for him. And, it's interesting to see the early drafts of the lyrics, because they're so dark and gothic, and they don't have the kind of realism that the song Born to Run has. Even though it's a super romantic song, it's like you can kind of smell the cars, you can feel the steering wheel sort of trembling in your palms when you imagine the lives of these guys. But those early versions of the lyrics, it's just crazy. I mean, people are getting run over by their own cars. I mean, he's speaking in this kind of symbolic language and telling these it's almost like a nightmare story of how the fast rebel gets run over by his own Hemi. It's like, whoa, that's a bad day on the road. But, and then the girl in it, not Wendy, just the beautiful surfer girl, who in one version he dies in her arms, and in another version she dies of a heroin overdose while he and all his friends get run over by their own cars. And it's like, oh my God, life was rough in Asbury Park. But
that's
he was trying to establish something about the darkness of the moment, and but it took him a while to get the tone right.
Was the sound upbeat and the words changed, or did the upbeat tempo change? Was it slower? Was it faster? What about the actual music part of it?
Well, Bruce said that the music came to him pretty much, as we hear it now. And a lot of the song is actually pretty simple. It's like a 3 or 4 chord rock and roll song until you get to that, the part in the middle, the bridge part, where it suddenly, the da da da, and it climbs up, and there's like 17 chords going, and it's moving from key to key to key, first on the way up and then on the way down. So it's actually a pretty complex piece of music, but I think the bones of it came to him pretty quickly. So I think I have never heard him perform or even, try out in the early versions of the lyrics with the music. But from what he's told me, the music came to him pretty quickly.
Who is Wendy?
Just some girl. Some dream girl of his. He was big on the dream girls back in those days. Wendy and Mary. They're all kind of the same person to some degree. What was interesting is that so many of the women, as he was writing the different early versions of those songs, in Thunder Road, the woman who is eventually is Mary, was like Christina and Angela or Angelica. They're all these kind of vaguely biblical names, which is sort of interesting when you think about it.
Peter Ames Carlin has written a lot of books, but two we wanted to get him on for. The name of this band is R.E.M. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. And then, of course, Tonight in Jungleland, his book that came out last year, The Making of Born to Run. Peter Ames Carlin, America at Night, back in a moment.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
And there's a book called Tonight in Jungleland, The Making of Born to Run by our guest Peter Ames Carlin. Peter, is it true that this was Springsteen's last go? If this album didn't make it, he was going to be dropped by his label and he was just going to be on the trash heap of history?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Certainly the part about him getting dropped by Columbia, his first 2 records didn't sell that great. In fact, they sold really badly, especially compared to the high hopes they had for him when they signed him. But the guy that who was president of the label when Bruce came in, Clive Davis, and was a huge fan. From the jump, Clive could hear what was going on, and was a big supporter. But unfortunately, he got fired between the release of Bruce's first record and the release of the second record. And the next guy that came in, I don't think he had any enmity for Bruce. He just, the guy that became the president was sort of tuned out. He came out of the TV network at CBS. And so the guy that was the head of the A&R department just wasn't a fan. He didn't get it. He was the guy that had signed Billy Joel. And Billy Joel was kind of the horse that he decided, that he could ride. And he didn't, he had a much more commercial sensibility. And, when he heard Bruce's second record, which Bruce recorded with his band, and they're, Wild the Innocent and the E Street Shuffle's got it's got a lot of great songs on it. Rosalita's on it, 4th of July, Asbury Park. It's a beautiful record, but you listen to it and it's like, well, I don't know, where's the single? It's kind of not there. And Bruce, and in 1973, that was, an issue. And Bruce was defiantly not a singles act, certainly not then. And the guy wanted Bruce to re-record the whole album with like studio pros, and make it sleeker and slicker and something that could conceivably get played. But Bruce was like, nope, not going to do it. And the guy said, okay, all right, well, we're not going to promote it, so good luck to you. And the record came out and did super badly. And at that point, they actually had Bruce's name on the drop list, which was the list of artists that they might theoretically let go. And the word was, yeah, we might do that. But there was always there were enough enthusiasts at the label, like serious jump on the sofa and shout and yell fans who worked there, and other things. And he had so much critical support that there was never really a clear path to dropping him. But they told him when he was wanting to make his third record, they said, why don't you make a single? And we'll see if you can make a song that sounds like it's going to end up on the radio. And if you can do that, then we'll give you the rest of the money to make the album. And the song that they spent 6 months working on in the studio, polishing and polishing and polishing, was Born to Run.
Now,
So,
did they know? I mean, I asked this question. Artists, you ask musicians, did you know it was going to be a hit? And they often say, we have no idea. Did they know?
No.
Did Bruce know this was going to be a hit? Did he know this was going to be his song?
I think he was proud of it. I think he knew it was pretty good, but he didn't really know. And at the time, since he'd never had a hit, and he wasn't really sure what the calculus was, I think it was like, how the hell would he know? I mean, so when he and his then manager, Mike Appel, took the song to an A&R, one of the A&R guys who was more sympathetic to them at Columbia, to play him the cassette when they finally had it down from the studio, just to get him on their side. He was like, he listened and he was like, yeah, it's nice. Let me listen to it a few more times. And they didn't really get back to him for the longest time. And so they were just sort of left hanging. And what Mike Appel did was he figured, well, I'm not just going to wait for these guys at Columbia to figure this out. And he dubbed like 100 copies of the single, or the song, and put them on tape and sent them to all these disc jockeys across the country who they knew were Bruce fans and would throw them on the radio the moment they got them, even though the song hadn't been released. And it started getting airplay and getting like loads and loads of requests in these cities like, Philadelphia and Cleveland and Boston and these kind of Bruce hotspots around the Northeast. And when that started, and then people began to call the record companies saying, where's the, we want to get this. Where is it? And they were like, how the hell does anyone have this? But that kind of lit a fire beneath them, and, that and some other things that were going on at the same time. But, one of the interesting things is that in that moment when Bruce was about to get dropped, he played a show at Brown University, and he told the newspaper there that it looked like the record company was going to drop him. And what he didn't know was that the son of the guy who was then the president of Columbia, the guy that had come from CBS TV, named Irwin Siegelstein, his son went to Brown. And he saw this concert that Bruce performed. And even though he wasn't a Springsteen fan, he thought it was like the most amazing show. And he called his dad, like the weekly check-in call to mom and dad. And as part of their conversation, he said, are you really going to drop Bruce Springsteen? Because I just saw him play like the most incredible show I've ever seen in my life. And that was enough to make his dad call up Bruce's manager and say, maybe we should have lunch and bring Bruce. And they had a really good conversation. And by the end of it, the guy goes, okay, let's give you the money so you can go into the studio and make your next record.
What a great story. Peter Ames Carlin, our guest. The book is called Tonight in Jungleland, The Making of Born to Run. With all that great story and all that juice behind the song, how does it never become number one?
It didn't even become, I don't think it even hit the top 20. I mean, it's a very long song. It didn't really connect with AM radio, which was where the action was for singles at the time. But what it was this incredible calling card and a way for FM stations, which were then just beginning to become the central part of the radio scene, to start programming that song and Thunder Road and 10th Avenue Freeze Out. And so suddenly he began to get a lot of attention on FM. And when that happened, and the critical acclaim was so over the top, when the album first came out, that became a top 3 album, I think. And I think in Cashbox it was number 1. So they sold like a couple million copies of the record, which of course, and given that the first 2 records had sold like less than 50,000 between the 2 of them, the fact that the third record sold, within a few months, sold more than 1 million copies was seen as pretty good progress.
It's so interesting. You talk about the struggles of a Bruce Springsteen to sort of gain traction. Right? It takes him 3 albums to sort of break through. Today, artists don't have that luxury. They don't have that on-ramp. They've got, I don't even think there are record companies anymore, right? So 3 albums, you are long gone in the world today when it comes to music.
Yeah, but I mean, the scene is so different now. I mean, just in terms of the influence of record companies, the influence of radio, because so much is happening online. So on the one hand, you don't have a young artist like Bruce was when he got signed. I think he was 22 when he got signed by Columbia actually, was he? Yeah, 22 years old in mid 1972, and he, they're there. They can give you money to record. You can do, and you needed to go into a professional recording studio, and then you needed to have someone be able to, press your album and promote it and distribute it and do all this kind of capital intensive stuff. Whereas now, so much distribution just happens digitally. So,
Right.
You can theoretically record a #1 single on your laptop or even on your phone and put it up on the internet by yourself and have, and make it that way. So it's a very
a fraction of the cost.
World.
Yeah.
Oh,
hey,
yeah,
Peter, hold that
pennies.
thought. Yeah, Peter Ames Carlin. The book is Tonight in Jungleland, The Making of Born to Run. We got to talk about his other book, R.E.M. Stay right there. Lots more to get to. America at Night. Back in a moment.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of the conversation on America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Not only did he write Tonight in Jungleland, Peter Ames Carlin also wrote a book about R.E.M., the band from the 80s that defined the 80s. The title of the book is called The Name of This Band is R.E.M. Peter, let's talk a little about the R.E.M. Book because it's now out in paperback. And if I could get into a DeLorean and go back in time, I would want to go back to the early 80s to Athens, Georgia, and be a college freshman and stumble across a bar and walk in and see this band called apparently R.E.M. and see them from the very beginning. Take me back to that time, and how did R.E.M. all start?
Well, they were 3 out of the 4 of them were students at the University of Georgia in Athens. And Peter Buck had gone to Emory University, but dropped out and started working in record stores, and ended up getting a job at this record store called Wuxtry, which was had a branch in Athens, and they needed a manager or something. So they asked him, if he wouldn't mind moving, and he thought, sure, fine. So he moved to Athens and kind of became the daytime guy at this record store and would hang out there, strumming his guitar behind the counter. And that's where he bumped into Michael Stipe, who had moved to Athens to catch up with his family in early 1979 and started going to school at UGA. And he was an art student. And one of the things about the University of Georgia's art school, which was the Lamar Dodd School of Art, was that it had a really cool faculty of people who were actually practicing artists and teachers as well, but they were all kind of bohemian and freaky, and a lot of them were super into music. And so a lot of these kids who were studying graphic art of one sort or the other, painting and sculpture, visual art, also, they were young. It was the 70s or the 80s, and they were into rock and roll and into music and into punk rock. And this aesthetic kind of began to be shared among, not just the faculty, but the students, that, the combination of the influence of punk rock and folk art, and this idea that, you should be able, if you have an artistic sensibility, you should be able to make art in any form, really, no matter what your skill set is. So a lot of these art students began to form bands, first of all, just to entertain themselves and to entertain their friends. But, you could form a band and not knowing how to play an instrument was not a problem. I mean, this band Pylon or the B-52s who got together, I think, in 1977, they talk about their first rehearsal. Like a lot of it was sitting down and trying to figure out who was going to learn to play which instrument. Less so with the Bees than with Pylon. But with Pylon, like the guy, Michael Lahusky, who was the co-founder and bassist of Pylon, was like, yeah, I decided to become the bass player because it had 2 fewer strings, and I thought it'd be easier to learn how to play. And they became like a really cool band, with a really distinctive sound that came, in part from the fact that, they didn't know how to play, but they taught themselves and they created, this musical aesthetic that was super interesting and distinctive and eventually quite popular.
So was R.E.M. that inexperienced? I mean, they had some musical training, even if it was self-taught, right? I mean, they were a little bit further along.
They were quite a bit further along. I mean,
Yeah.
Peter was sort of their spokesman in the media in the beginning, and he was really one for sort of playing up their amateur creds. But actually, the rhythm section, Mike Mills and Bill Berry had been playing together in high school bands going back like 4 or 5 years at that point, and they were in like a really successful high school band. And Mike Mills had been quite well trained, and was a multi-instrumentalist who could play guitar, bass, keyboards, everything. And Bill Berry could play guitar and drums. I mean, those guys were great musicians. Peter hadn't really played in a band, but he had been obsessively playing guitar for years on his own, and kind of teaching himself. And Michael Stipe had been in bands when he was in high school and was very determined to be a rock star, essentially, and was extraordinarily talented as a singer and a songwriter as well, as and they were all great songwriters.
Sure.
Ultimately. But there was a certain amount of learning on the job. But by the time, even when they played their first show, which was in early April of 1980 at a party that was held in this old Episcopal church in Athens, where some of them lived, the moment, there were a couple other bands that were playing their first shows that night. But when R.E.M. came up, it's like the place just was like riveted. I mean, people, they were cool guys, so they had a lot of friends and a lot of people were crowding in. But once they began playing and people heard what was going on, like you couldn't get in the door.
Yeah.
And that was like literally their first show.
Unlike Springsteen, who could walk across the river and go to New York, right? These guys were discovered in Athens, Georgia. So how much was it the Athens, Georgia crowd, and it grew from there? How much of it was it college radio stations at the time? And or how much was it MTV at the time that sort of propelled a lot of groups like R.E.M.?
Well, MTV didn't really pick up on R.E.M. in a major way until much later in the decade, till The One I Love, really. I mean, they would occasionally play the early videos, which were, to be honest, not a lot of fun to watch. They're very arty and very strange, and hard to watch. Some of them are. But really, honestly, from the moment they got started, those guys were on it. Like they wanted to be big. They were not fooling around. And they would, the moment one of the interesting things about their formation was that Bill Berry had worked at a booking agency just as an office boy in Macon, where he and Mike Mills grew up. And so he knew all these guys who had taught him how the industry works. And so when they had a band and were starting to try to figure out how to play around the Southeast, he knew who to call at all these clubs and how to get a booking and then how to behave when you're there and be professional about it. And from the beginning, they would play anywhere: pizza parlors, gay bars, fraternities, house parties. They'd go anywhere because they figured that, unlike some, like Pylon, those guys really only ever wanted to play for audiences that they knew would get them from the start. But R.E.M. would go anywhere and play anything because they just figured we're going to win over people with every show. And even if it's one or two, if we play enough shows, those one or two people are going to come back with one or two friends. And if we come back again and again and again, everyone's going to start bringing their friends, and it's going to be huge. And they were right. Eventually, when they had records out, they did a really great job of going to all the different college radio stations and ingratiating themselves with the DJs and the program directors and making friends, because they were all so young at the time. I mean, they were, if they weren't out playing music, they would have been college DJs themselves. So they all had a lot in common and shared a lot of taste. So they kind of built the foundations of their popularity, like almost literally hand to hand, by meeting, going and playing a ton of shows, connecting with people, befriending people, and just sort of being nice guys and going out and playing great shows and remembering people and being kind to them.
Yeah.
And that was, and it was a very, it took them a long time to break through. But when they eventually did begin to play bigger shows and kind of get a bigger audience, they were really seasoned and smart about how they did it.
Well, the book is called "The Name of This Band Is R.E.M." Peter Ames Carlin is our guest. One of the things I loved about R.E.M. is they stayed friends through the whole thing, and they retired together. And oftentimes, right, bands get successful, they break up. There's all sorts of infighting. They never talk again. But from the outside looking in, right, R.E.M. stayed friends till the end, right?
Oh yeah, they're still friends. I mean, they, you occasionally you'll see things where they all go to a bar. They'll go to the 40 Watt to catch a show together. If all four of them are in Athens, and I would see Peter Buck. I used to live in Portland, and Peter's lived there for like the last 15 years or so. And Peter was around town a lot, and and I had a lot of friends. I was buddies with him, and we had a lot of friends in common. And I'd hear like, oh yeah, Mike Mills was here working with him over there, or or Bill. Bill didn't come out a lot to leave town. He likes to stay home. But, they were like, I've written about a lot of different musicians and bands and stuff, and I swear to God, R.E.M. is by far the most emotionally mature group of guys I've ever written about in my life. I mean, they were, and part of it was they were kind of well-raised, all of them. They had good relationships with their parents, by and large. And I think the fact that it took them so long to really break through, as opposed to a band like Nirvana, where it happened like almost overnight. Once their first record came out. But, R.E.M. had really about 10 years for gradual, slow growth that allowed for them to kind of adjust along the way and to grow up a little bit. So by the time, like, the whole world was paying attention to them, they were, I think, Michael Stipe was the youngest. I think he was like 28 when their first song was like a top 10 hit. And the other guys were, I think, in their early 30s by then. And so when they hit that incredibly hot streak between about 1989 and 1995, and they went on, they were grown up about it. And they had made really smart decisions about, we're going to split everything equally. Everyone's going to be, we're all going to get royalties and credits for writing every song. And they hired really good management who were local and smart and focused on them. And so,
Yeah. Do you ever see them touring again or getting on stage and doing it again, or a new album at any point?
They swear they'll never do that. And if you look at their career and notice how many times they zagged when everybody else zigged, they've made a practice of it. And so, if I were a betting man, I think I would wager on them not getting back together again. But on the other hand, they love each other, and who knows whether someone starts to feel an itch, like, I kind of want to go back and do the thing that we did together, because there's a certain chemistry, a certain feeling that you get when you're making art with a particular group of people, and if that turned out to be the work of your life. And when there's a way where I think for some people, that's when they feel the most alive. And for some people who have kids, it's also nice, and we're bigger, or whatever, we're super famous before their kids were born or when the kids were young. They like the idea of being able to go out and show them, what dad did when everybody loved him.
Yeah.
And,
do you have
and also, I think it's a good way to make a lot of money. if you need that sort of thing.
I don't know if they need that. But Peter Ames Carlin, do you have a favorite REM song?
Do I have a favorite REM song? On any given day, could be any of them, but I think Night Swimming off of Automatic for the People is one of my faves. But there's, on any given day, there's a different answer to that question.
It's so true, and I love Don't Go Back to Rockdale or Rockville. I always butcher that, but that one, for some reason, that one always gets me. It's a little country, it's a little twangy, it's a little sideways from what they normally do, but I always love that one, too.
Yeah.
What about movies or a TV show on the book to sort of turn it into a docuseries, a docudrama, a documentary using your book? Any talk of that?
Well, no one's talked to me about that. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't be opposed to that sort of thing. I mean, it sounds like fun to me. But I just, I think there's some people who are a lot better at making that happen than me. I'm just up here in Seattle, kind of, trying to be a writer. And so if I were smarter, a little more hip, I think I would know more people in LA or New York or whatever, and actually get that sort of thing going. But
well, you're hanging out with R.E.M. and Bruce Springsteen, so it ain't that bad of a gig. What are you working on next, Peter?
I'm sort of, I ended up writing that Tonight in Jungleland book so quickly after the R.E.M. book, and it was a real crunch of a thing. So I've been a little bit slacking for a few months. And I spent a lot of time and energy promoting both the R.E.M. book and the Bruce book. But and it was a joy to a great extent, but it wears you down. So I've been catching up on my chores. And I'm beginning to think about the next thing, but there's nothing I can talk about at the moment.
Fair enough. Peter Ames Carlin, we got a text for you. This one is from Catherine in British Columbia. She wants to know, who were Bruce's biggest influences for his guitar playing and his writing?
Ooh. For his guitar playing, that's a really good question because his guitar style has changed so dramatically over the years. I mean, if you listen to him, especially the very, very early stuff and the stuff before the E Street Band when he was playing with Steel Mill, and you can get a lot of that stuff online, he was like the fastest guitar in New Jersey. And a lot of the songs he wrote in those days were essentially delivery systems for these very long, sort of elaborate solos that he would do. But that's a very different style than what he grew into, which is far more simple and far more kind of country inspired to some degree.
Yeah.
But every so often, he'll tear it open. I mean, if you listen to Kitty's Back, which was on that second record, that's like the one recorded example of him really letting fly on the guitar. He listens to a bunch of different guitar players. Dwayne Eddy, I think, is one he talks about a lot. In terms of his songwriting, and again, he has evolved so much from the early days when, his songs were so, sounded a little like Dylan, a little like Van Morrison, a little like, any of these other great singer-songwriters of the late 60s, early 70s. But then as he went on, you hear more Woody Guthrie influence.
A lot of folk stuff.
Hank Williams and Johnny Cash and that kind of stuff. But for so long, he's been such a distinctive voice of his own.
Peter Ames Carlin, the two books, Tonight in Jungleland, The Making of Born to Run, and then his book on R.E.M. is called, the name of this band is R.E.M. Peter, you are always welcome here. Whenever you put something pen to paper, come on back and tell us all about it. We thank you for your time and good luck down the road.
You bet. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Peter Ames Carlin, the name of this band is R.E.M. and Tonight in Jungleland. Back in a moment. America at Night.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven, where the nation comes to talk.
Hey, from the text line, What is that theme song of yours? It makes me want to pour a glass of brandy and hug the first redhead I see. Woman, that is. Frank from College Station, Texas, chimes in. That song is called Rhythm on the River by Harry Allen. And that's going to do it for hour number 2. Tonight in Jungleland. And the name of this band is R.E.M. What a fun job to go hang out with R.E.M. and Bruce Springsteen and tell their tale. Peter Ames Carlin, 2 books where all fine books are sold. Next hour, stay right there. We've got open phones. We've got text lines. We've got texts from all over the country, phone calls from all over the country. People are starting to line up right now. We'll have to take all comers, including those rogue calls where they go off from left field. Talk about all that next hour. Stay right there. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven. And this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
All right, it's hour number 3 on a Wednesday night. It's July 28th, and that is The Rhythm on the River from Harry Allen. That's what people are talking about. Phone numbers are as follows: 1-844-2-McGraw. That's MC capital G-R-A-W. 1-844-262-4729. Text your comments. Text your thoughts. Make them pithy. Make them interesting. Avoid salty language, and we'll try and mix them into the conversation. 1-844-2-McGraw or 1-844-262-4729. Of course, that's also the same phone number for phone calls. We love phone calls, whether you want to talk about the news of the day or something we talked about earlier in the night, something we talked about last night, or you just want to go rogue and talk about something we haven't talked about at all. Now, I don't necessarily want to rehash what we've talked about the last couple of nights. One of the things I like about one of the things I do with the radio show is I know there are certain topics that are in the news, like this Minnesota shooting, and I know that people like to talk about it, which is fine, and call up and you have a point of view and whatever else. But I'm not like talk TV where they talk about the same topic incessantly every night, all night. And there's no new facts, and it's just opinion-driven and everything else. But tonight, there seems to be some new information on this Alex Pretti guy who was shot by ICE this last weekend. They are now, it is unveiled some new video where he got into an altercation 11 days before the shooting, and where he was shot in the street, which is why people call for an investigation so that all of these things can be investigated. Which is why I don't jump to conclusions. Which is, I get criticized from every angle for, we have to wait for the facts to come out. We want to know what happened. It looks bad this way, it looks this way, but it's hard to tell. And, right, everyone sees it through their own agenda, but you really have to wait for the investigation so we understand exactly what happened and who happened and what happened before and what happened. Well, now we find out that some new video has surfaced where apparently, and this is just breaking tonight, so I'm sure if you haven't seen it, I'm sure you'll be watching it, you'll see it 15 million times. But he gets into an altercation with one of the ICE agents, and the ICE agents are in a SUV driving away, and Alex Pretti runs up to the back of the SUV and kicks the taillight out. So the ICE officer's in the car, appears to be driving away, and he runs up to the car, kicks it, the taillight breaks, the ICE agent gets out of the car, and then goes after him, tackles him, wrestles him to the ground. There's other agents there. There's guns that are drawn, not his, but it was an altercation with federal agents 11 days before the killing. And that's where I have said, again, I get criticized for everything I say, but you can peacefully protest. You can stand on the corner and say all sorts of derogatory things about ICE agents. You can blow your whistle. You can videotape. But once you get in the middle of the street and blocking their car and everything else, you've crossed a line, and you're doing your own cause a disservice. And so, however righteous you think your point is, when you start kicking the car of an ICE agent, you've crossed the line. And you become an unsympathetic figure. And so we'll see how this thing lands, but it's going to land with a thud. But, it is what it is, and we'll take phone calls. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We can certainly talk about that. We can talk about Bill Belichick not getting in the Hall of Fame, which is, there is some... There's a lot of people out there who do not like Bill Belichick. Let me tell you. He got caught numerous times for Deflategate, right, where they deflated the football, and they got caught filming practices and stealing signs, and they had to give up draft picks, and they had to apologize, and all these types of things. And so I know some sports guys that have broken down Bill Belichick's record without Tom Brady. And if you take his record without Tom Brady, there are many other coaches with a better record coaching without Tom Brady than Bill Belichick. Now, is it apples to apples? No, it's impossible to judge a coach on their record, right? A great coach, one could argue a great coach, regardless of their record, right? You could be undefeated and be a terrible coach. You could go 1-15 and be a great coach. So it's not apples to apples, but some sports guys are breaking this Bill Belichick story down to what was his record as a football coach without Tom Brady. And a number of coaches, including Rex Ryan and some other ones, have a better record than Bill Belichick when Bill Belichick didn't have Tom Brady. It's just an interesting argument, an interesting debate. But clearly, there are a lot of people who don't like Bill Belichick. And I know he was salty with the media, and I know he was salty with a whole bunch of other people, and he, was an old curmudgeon even 20 years ago. But him not getting into the Hall of Fame as the second winningest coach in the history of the NFL, that was a bit of a head scratcher. But after talking to the sports guys, I must have been talking to some sports guys with quite a bit of personal animosity towards Bill Belichick. It was actually kind of funny. All right, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. It's open phones. Let's go to Jim in St. Louis. Jim, welcome to America at Night. Hello.
Hey, McGraw, how you doing?
Good, Jim. How are you?
So I'm good. So I'm driving down the road, and I'm listening to all this for the last week and a half or so about this person that got killed in this petty person.
Yeah.
And, all these protesters and all these people that are engaging with people of authority, whether it's a policeman, a fireman, local, federal, it doesn't matter. Those people are there to do a job. And if you get in their way, they're going to do what they have to do. And if they feel threatened, they're trained to protect themselves. And I don't understand why people, I don't understand why it had to go that far, to be honest with you.
You mean the shooting, or the protester getting in the way?
I don't understand, with all those ICE agents around that one person, why they had to shoot that poor fellow. I mean, Jim,
two things can be true, right? The Alex Pretti could have crossed the line, right, and been wrong in doing that, but also too, the agents could have handled it much better, obviously, than 10 shots and shooting the man, right? Both things,
absolutely, they could have.
Both things could be true.
They could have tased the guy. They could have, to de-escalate the situation.
Right.
I don't agree with the way that the police handle, people that the police feel threatened by a protester or by another, when they're trying to search, do a warrant or any of those things. They all feel threatened when they walk up to a stranger's house and perform an arrest or whatever it is. But my wife and I got in an argument about this the other day because she's very passionate about this stuff, and I tried to reason with her about what happened.
Yeah.
And she's one of those people that just are angry about the whole thing and doesn't understand what the police and what the ICE agents are out to do. They have a job to do, and to be honest with you, I mean, why those people put themselves in these situations is beyond me.
Well, again, Jim, I think God love your wife, and God love people who disagree with you and me, and see it their point of view. That's what sort of makes America great.
And I love my wife, and we get along great and everything. But when it comes to politics, we don't. Because
right.
We don't see eye to eye on that stuff. But we have a great relationship, and we have a spirited conversation about it. But
Sure.
Don't let it get in the way of our relationship. But
right, yeah, and I wish more people would do that, and be able to sort of separate. Hey, we disagree with this, but I still love you to two pieces. But again, I think, Jim, both things can be true, right? I mean, you're saying, look, I'm not saying if I'm putting words in your mouth. It sounds like you're saying the police and the ICE officers went too far, and you can't have trigger-happy ICE officers every time somebody steps out of line, right? But that's also true that he crossed the line, especially with this new video where he's kicking the back of an ICE vehicle. They lose their credibility and they lose their sense of moral superiority when they start turning violent. They lose credibility and they do a disservice to their cause. If they stand on the corner and sing Kumbaya and videotape and blow their whistles, and then, God forbid, somebody comes up to them and pushes them aside, okay, right? That's a sympathetic figure. But when a protester is kicking the ICE car in the middle of the road and getting in the middle of doing what they're, getting in the way of doing their job, they lose credibility with me. And both things could be true. The agents could be wrong, right? The agents overreacted. The agents went sort of rogue.
Absolutely.
And the protesters are wrong, because there are a lot of peaceful protesters in Minneapolis that are doing it right? They had a big protest this weekend. They had a march downtown in Minneapolis. Some reports were that it was 50,000 people were there. It was all peaceful. They didn't loot. They didn't overturn cars. They peacefully protested. That's what you're supposed to do. But when you cross the line, that's when you get into trouble.
Yeah, did anybody ever talk about that? That poor woman that got killed a couple of weeks ago. That was driving away from that ICE agent, and there was a lady in the background. The video that I saw and heard, there was a woman screaming in the background to stop. Was she saying to stop? Was that her wife talking to her, yelling at her to stop her vehicle because she knew that ICE agent was going to get violent?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think the woman you're talking about was apparently her partner. I don't know what that means.
Partner. It was her partner or wife, but she was screaming in the background while that officer shot that poor woman, and I could hear her screaming in the background, "Stop, stop!" Like she knew that something was gonna that ICE officer had pulled his gun out. She saw that, and was trying to tell her to stop because she kept driving away. And that I don't know, exactly what happened with that, but that stuff just doesn't. It just doesn't have to happen.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's
that's
why.
Happen, and it just aggravates the heck out of me when it.
So
when
it's a sad story all the way around. Jim, thanks for calling. Thanks for checking in. Appreciate the comments. 1-844-2-McGraw. 1-844-262-4729. Give us a call. Text your comments to 1-844-262-4729 or your phone calls. 1-844-262-4729. We got a couple of lines open for you right now. America at Night. Stay right there. Back in a moment.
Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, from the Country Club Car Wash text line. No, not from, whoops. From the text line, from the America at Night text line, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. I guess I'm finally starting to feel comfortable in the chair. Tom Brady improved under Bill Belichick. What are you talking about? I don't know if that's the case. Tom Brady came in game one. What was it? Whatever, right? With the Jets, they knocked out what's his face, and Tom Brady came in and he ended up taking to the Super Bowl that year and beating the Rams. So I don't know if Brady. I mean, he got better, but he was great and won the Super Bowl in his first season. He was a starter for the Rams or for the Patriots. So you could argue that Brady was already great before Bill Belichick got his hands on him. Jeff in Wilmington, North Carolina, welcome to America at Night.
Yes, sir, Mr. McGraw. I'm enjoying you being on the show there, and been listening to it every night. And what I found out is, first off, I keep listening to it, and everybody acts like these are just protesters, like ICE is pulling up to like the 50,000 people that are doing their protest. They've got they found out they've got encrypted signal on their phones, and so they're tracking these ICE guys, following them, this certain group of people, and then when the ICE stops, they're all calling each other, oh, they're going left on Elm right now. Hurry, get over there. And then they come in, box them in and everything, get out and blow their whistles. And,
yes.
So
yes, there is a, you're absolutely right. There is a concentrated effort through social media to sort of track them, follow them. I don't want to say harass them, but I guess that would be appropriate. Harass them.
I would think that would be the appropriate term.
Yeah. There's no question. There's no question that there is a portion of those protesters that are crossing the line. And I got to go because I'm short on the bottom of the hour break, Jeff. But
paid George Soros money. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. But when they had the 50,000 person march this weekend in Minneapolis, ICE didn't have a problem with them, right? There was no violence because they were peacefully protesting, walking down the street. No, there's no question. Two things can be right? The protesters are wrong, and ICE is having a hard time dealing with the agitators, obviously. Stay right there. Thanks for the phone call. America at Night, back in a moment.
What's on your mind? Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, let's go back to the phones. We've got Paul in Zanesville, Ohio. Hello.
Good evening, McGraw. Yeah, very interesting there, the last conversation. Yeah, I was just wondering how much of an influencer, what drew me to Bruce Springsteen was Clarence Clemens and the saxophone and the band behind him. I think that might have been what triggered, some of his success, because I don't know, McGraw, if you've ever heard Clarence Clemens play, but he was one of the best saxophonists in the world, in my opinion. Rest in peace, Clarence. But what do you think? I mean, that's what drew me to him, and I like your show. I think you lean just a little bit left, McGraw, but that's all right. I'll keep listening.
Paul, let me guess. You lean a little right.
Well, I say in the middle, but I do lean a little right. Yes, you're right, sir.
Okay. Now, God love you. I thank you for listening. There's no one. I've been in talk radio for 30 years now. Somebody's getting old around here. And nobody has ever called up and said, I'm left, but boy, Milhaven, you're a real lefty, right? No one's ever called up and said, I'm right, but man, you are far right, right? No matter what anybody is, I'm the opposite, right? In my 30 years, no matter if you're a liberal, you're convinced I'm a Trumper. If you're a Trumper, you're convinced I'm a liberal. I'll even go one further, Paul. In 2026, you put two Trump supporters in a room. One of them's a liberal.
Okay.
Right? You put two liberals in a room. You put two Biden supporters in a room. One of them's a conservative.
It's a good point there.
So I don't know what, to be honest with you, I don't know what I am. I don't know what conservatism is anymore. I don't know what liberalism is anymore. It's been so defined. The parties are reshaping what they believe and their platforms. The old conservative tenets, I think, are, the party of Ronald Reagan, I think, is long gone. The party of John F. Kennedy, the party of Barack Obama, I think, is sort of long gone. So I don't know what liberal is anymore, and I don't know what or what conservatism is. So that's just that. Now, as for Clarence Clemens, let's get back to the important stuff, because who cares where somebody is on the spectrum? We're all Americans.
We're all humans. Yep.
Right. Yeah. So I've seen Clarence. I've saw Springsteen in concert with Clarence Clemens. And what's great about, I think you're right about the band, but it's that gravelly sort of raw saxophone, Max Weinberg drummer, Steven Van Zandt guitar playing. The whole. It's just it's like magic in a bottle, right? It's just this sort of secret sauce that they all just sort of came together, and there was just a spark at the right moment, at the right time, and they just caught lightning in a bottle.
Yes, and I listen to him every night on YouTube after I listen to your show.
Is that right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I listen to it.
I mean, you can't have Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band without Clarence Clemens, right? It's just not the same band.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I appreciate it. Hey, Paul, thanks for listening. Call back anytime. You got it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
You got it. Tony in Montreal, welcome to America at Night.
I like that statement. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I like that statement. We're all Americans. That includes the 51st state. I mean, according to your government, we're going to be Americans. So I feel comfortable talking. I feel comfortable talking to you because Montreal is now part of St. Louis. What can I tell you?
There you go. God love you. All right, Tony. No gloom and doom tonight. No gloom and doom tonight.
Hey, well, I'm schooled in diplomatic history. My concentration's in 4 countries. Think about this. In 1978, I was studying Iran, Russia, China, and the United States. And the reason is that I tied them in as revolutionary governments and revolutionary countries. And tonight I want to talk about Iran, because back in 1978, we were going through a revolution. And I don't want to get into who manipulated the Shah in and out. Was it the British? Was it the Americans? And then the mullahs come in. But one of my good friends called me from Vancouver. I know her for 3 years. She's an engineer. Very intelligent people, the Iranian people. Hospitable, incredibly kind people. They love music. They're very happy people. They have great comedy. This lady calls me up and says, Tony, can you get the word out? 60,000 people died in 3 days in protests. The people went into the streets and they gunned us down. They chopped us. They shot us. And to get our bodies back, we have to pay We have to pay for the bullets that killed the bodies. America doesn't know this. I don't know what, I mean, the world power that has stood for right has always been America. I believe that. And Canada always supported America's forays into foreign situations, World War I, II, etc. But right now, they're killing people in the thousands. And that regime, for everything that we talk about in the United States, Minnesota and Krasner in Philadelphia, and these different lieutenant governors and governors, that's all nonsense compared. It's not nonsense, but when you hear 50 to 60,000 people died in a weekend, that's something else.
Well,
and
first of all, when they turn,
if Trump is listening to your show, or anybody is.
Yes.
Get the real facts on the ground. Get the real facts, because you talk about that all the time.
Hold on a second. Hold on, Tony. First of all, that's why they turn off the internet, because you turn off the internet, right? The first thing they used to do years ago was control the radio stations, control the TV stations. Now, what do? They turn off the internet. And so when you turn off the internet, you can do a lot more in the dark than you can in the light. So that's one. Two, you have to assume that the president of the United States is getting much more credible information than the rest of us are. And so we're here. We're not seeing any video because video drives the news today, which is why Minnesota is the biggest story in the world, because there's video. If there weren't video, it would be a 2-hour story, and then people would move on. Video drives the news these days. So since you don't have any video, we're hearing, right, dribs and drabs coming out. You hear this, you hear that. We think we hear this. We don't know. I heard a guy on the radio say 20,000. I heard the guy on TV say 40,000. We really can't compute. We don't know. But you have to assume that the president knows what's going on. But again, I don't. You need the wisdom of Solomon to figure out. Or the wisdom of Job. I always get that confused. Who had the wisdom? Who had the patience? Who had the wisdom? Anyway,
patience of Job. Patience of Job.
There you go. And the wisdom of Solomon. But I mean, what do you really want to start a war with Iran? Do you really want to send troops in there? What happens? What do you bomb? What do you bomb? I mean, Venezuela, is one thing. I think Iran is another one. That's a different ball game. Do you just throw a couple of Tomahawk cruise missiles in and sort of hope they stop? I don't know the answer to that.
I asked. Her name is Roya Rusta. She's a very good friend of mine. I said, what do you want us to do? What do you want me to tell the Americans? She goes, bomb the hell out of the country, level it. She said, it's my own country, but these people have destroyed generations of people. We have to eliminate them. They are interested in only having a religious dictatorship. It's Islamofascism at its utmost, and they're killing young people daily. And they when the parents ask for the bodies back, they charge us bullet tax. You have to pay for the bullets that killed your kid. Think about the insanity of that. Yeah. And, what do I want Trump to do? I want Trump to do a Maduro. I want him to go in and take out the same way he took out the leadership of Hezbollah when he sent in those specific missiles and they killed the guy in his car. I think that the Americans have technology. They know on the ground what's going on, and they know how to kill every one of those people that are killing their own people. And I don't advocate for killing, but this is Nazism.
Well, look,
this is Hitler.
This has been an argument or a debate going on for 100 years, right? Are we the world's policeman or are we not? There are many people.
The greatest country. Listen,
I'm not. Tony. I'm not. Stop. I get it. I get all that. It's a legitimate point of view. It's very, very difficult. Are we the world's policeman? Are we not the world's policeman? When do you go in? When do you not go in? These are questions that keep presidents up at night. When do you go in? When do you not go in? I don't have the answer to that. I don't know. And if anyone thinks they do, they're lying to themselves. It's a fool's errand. We don't know when it makes sense. We want to do it for our own benefit, but we also want to do it because we're humans, and you can't stand by and watch Nazi Germany kill 6 million Jews in gas chambers, right? Where is the moral obligation of the United States? Where is the national security interests of the United States? Two very fair-minded people can come up with two very different answers to that question.
Say this, okay?
Yeah, you make your point, and then I'll move on. Make your point. You get the last word, Tony. Go ahead.
First of all, I love you the fact that you give us time, okay? You listen to us. Number two, your country ended World War II because you decided to get involved. You were an isolationist country, but the minute that you put your foot into that war, the war ended very quickly thereafter. You have inherited, okay? You have inherited the protection of the world because of its capitalist orientation. And the United States is shining light on the top of the mountain. And the world looks towards the United States, the great people of the United States, not necessarily the government, the great lunch bucket people in St. Louis, in Maine, all across that country have made sacrifices. And when you go to Washington, where I took my kids, and I said, that's the Vietnam veterans that died for freedom. Whether you agree or disagree, those people sacrificed. And that's what you've been doing your country has been doing that the entire time I've been alive, and you made this world straight. You protected people. Your country sacrificed for many other countries, including Canada. And we owe the United States a debt. And when it comes to destroying other countries, the only country that steps up, whether you're in Nigeria and you're killing Christians, is the United States. The United States, before even the Pope has defended Christians.
Tony, I thank you for the phone call, and I thank you for your passion. Have a good night, Tony. You got it. All right, it's America at Night. The text line. Things I can say and things I can't say. All right, stay right there. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. America at Night. Back in a moment.
From the heart of America, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
The text line, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. The text line's hopping tonight. Canadian troops killed in Afghanistan. Yes, they were. Canadian troops and NATO. Article 5 was invoked after we were attacked on 9/11. That's when NATO came to the United States defense. And British troops, Canadian troops, yes, they all died for supporting us in our defense after 9/11. Here's another one. Canada helped the hostages get out of Iran. Here's another one. We lost in Vietnam. We lost in Iraq. We lost in Afghanistan. Foreign entanglements don't play God. There you go. There's another one. Let's see here. This one is never say never about an R.E.M. tour. Look at Rush. Here's another one from Vermont. Trump did the same thing with China. He tried to raise tariffs, ended up back where he started, then pats himself on the back for making a great deal. Same as Denmark's deal back where it started. Text line is, let's see, there's another one here. Okay. Let me leave you with this. And it's, I want to just make a comment about Minnesota. Everyone is up in arms about Minnesota. Everyone has an opinion. They're all over the board. But take a step back for a second. Think about this. The ICE agents are wearing masks. Why are they wearing masks? They're wearing masks because they're afraid that the protesters are going to take their picture, put it up on the internet. Someone's going to find them. Someone's going to find where they live. Someone's going to go to their home. Someone's going to attack their children, their wife, their family members, whatever, right? so they're wearing the masks. Protesters, they're worried that they're going to be get hurt. The people of Minnesota, some of them we've heard this week, right? The school kids are afraid to go to school. Other people in Minnesota are afraid to leave their home. Citizens who might be looked upon as somebody who is a foreigner, an immigrant, they're afraid to leave their homes. In Minnesota, 2 state lawmakers were shot and killed back in June. At that point, the House of Representatives launched a pilot program and allotted $5,000 a month to members of Congress to spend on security outside of the U.S. Capitol. You had that Congressman Omar last night get sort of squirted with some type of liquid last night, right? You have all these people who are worried about violence against them. They're all Americans. What is going on? So this $5,000, this pilot program that they gave to House members, do you know that was increased to $10,000 after the Charlie Kirk assassination? And then in September, it doubled again to $20,000. Now the Sergeant of Arms provides another $20,000 for members of Congress to use for their permanent home security upgrades. This is all violence done by Americans against Americans. Everybody's petrified. So we have weaponized everything. ICE agents are afraid. Protesters are afraid of violence. Kids are afraid to go to school because of violence. Citizens are afraid to leave their house because of violence. Lawmakers are getting shot in their house. Members of Congress, $20,000 each for just security. We have a growing violence problem in this country, and it's not the inner city drug dealers that are killing it. It's Americans killing Americans in the name of you're right and I'm wrong. That's the sad part. That's the sad reality to all of this. We are officially out of time, so I can't get to the phones. John in, looks like Ojai Springs, Idaho, and Katrina, we do not have time to get to you tonight. Sorry. I apologize. Try and call back tomorrow. Text line's always open. Leave your texts, and we'll try and get to them at some point tomorrow. And, of course, phone calls in the third hour each and every night. I want to thank our guests tonight, who we were talking about data centers. We had the Gun Owners of America on talking about gun rights, which was quite entertaining and informative. Peter Ames Carlin wrote the book on R.E.M. and the book on the Bruce Springsteen, Tonight in Jungleland, the story of Born to Run. Interesting night. And always thanks for your phone call. Thanks for your texts. It is called America at Night for a reason, because this is where America comes to talk. And I am honored to do it each and every night. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven. Good night, everybody. This is America at Night on Westwood One.